welcome to the RTD's English News. Here are the headlines of the 1st December 2015. The head of state paid tribute of the victim of the Bataclan attack. Part of the Hill 1 contagion returned to Djibouti. Thank you for joining us here in our newsroom. The President of the Republic, Ismail Omar Guelleh, participated since yesterday at the conference on Paris climate change COP21. On this occasion, the head of state, Ismail Omar Guelleh, has delivered with an important speech in which he referred at great length the process of climate change, including disturbing climate warming of our planet and the solution to address them, including the use of green energy. President Guelleh says also the opportunity of his presence at the COP21 climate summit and among world leaders who stopped at the Bataclan concert hall in Paris to lay waste at the place where a gunman opened fire and shot 89 people died during the recent terrorist attacks. The President of the Republic, ahead of many officials, stood together with the mayor of Paris and Hidalgo on a mostly empty Paris boulevard. Here we see the head of state, Ismail Omar Guelleh, laying waste at the place where a gunman opened fire to more than 139 people. After the opening of the meeting, Tycoon have in their speech expressed the need of every country, and they have come up with the very fact that the Earth is dissipating and the emission gas is provoking heavy dramatic change in every part of the world. Let's listen to what has been said in the conclusion of this first day.
The consequences of climate warming are affecting directly the poor countries, in particular Africa, which has to adapt to it and put forward its energy security by accelerating the investments in the renewable energies, less polluting, more vulnerable, and a strong potential to the renewable energy. The continent has to take its destiny in hand and develop a common response to the climatic variation. The Republic of Djibouti intends to show the right bet to have a preventive measure to the climate warming. Low rainfall, limited potable water. The country has already oriented its development policy to a resilient economy separated in three aspects, according to the Ministry of Environment, such as intensification of using renewable energy, integration and increase of regional commercial exchanges in order to lower its dependence to the international market, and finally, to improve the adaptation of its environment to the climate change. In his speech yesterday at the COP21 summit, the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, has indicated that just like the other African countries, the adaptation remains the priority of the Djiboutian government.
We are already facing with the lack of water and to the weakness of the productivity in agriculture, to the devastating flood, the recurrent drought, with the increase of the level of the sea, to health problems due to climate change, and I pass all the actions taken to cope with these extreme climatic phenomenon must be financed. Why we ask that the international mobilized financing within the framework of the fight against climate change should be fairly shared into it, the mitigating actions and the adaptations. In this regard, we are concerned about the current trend, which, as revealed by the recent report of the OECD presented in Lima, showed that only 70% of the funding is devoted to the adaptations, which remain largely insufficient. Neglecting the adaptation, it is therefore forced that climate change already hitting many countries and that its negative impact will only grow regardless of the mitigation. The hope is once again to the appointment it is strong enough and powerful enough to allow us to hear on the essentials, to act finally and really for our planet.
In the last June, and after many months of works, the Republic of Djibouti has validated its first national strategy to master the energy based on the renewable energies. This program aspires to increase the part of the renewable energies in a completely reproduced energy, including photovoltaic energy and the energy effectiveness in the construction and electrical goods sector. The Republic of Djibouti is committed to reduce by 40% its greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2030 compared to today's level. The country is set on this objective concerning its national plan submitted to the United Nations Framework Convention on the Climate Change in the context of the United Nations Conference on the Climate Change that is being held in Paris. The Republic of Djibouti is the 6th country of the continent and the 54th country in the world to have submitted its contribution.
Still on the sidelines of the COP21, the African leaders have gathered in an international meeting related to the Grand Pan-African Green Wall. Here is a report of this meeting.
The President of the Republic, Ismail Omar Guelleh, has participated today to the international meeting in the margin of the COP21 in Paris related to the draft Pan-African of the Great Wall Green. In this context, the Djiboutian head of state has launched an appeal to the international community to support the large Great African Green Wall, which has been developed in N'Djamena in 2009 during a summit of African head of state. Let's bear in mind that Djibouti was the first country to ratify the convention of the project of the Great Green Wall. The President also pointed out when its foundation that Djibouti has developed an action plan and a strategy which have been identified to implement in the construction of the Great Wall Green. In his speech, the President of the Republic has declared, "As you all know, Africa is particularly affected by desertification, and this phenomenon will increase further with the climate warming, whose harmful effects are already being felt on the whole earth and on the African continent in particular." Faced with this threat, the project of building a Great Wall Green on the outskirts of the Sahara and the Sahel is not only to plant trees along a route through Africa from west to east, but rather it is to create a corridor of sustainable development that allow the people concerned to emerge from the truth of poverty. That's why the draft of the GMV has several components, including the mobilization of water resources, the development of renewable energies, the agropastoral farming, the promotion of income-generating activities, and a path. The head of state and government of the countries concerned by this initiative have decided at a summit held in N'Djamena in June 2009 to create the Pan-African Agency of the Great Wall Green. However, the success of the project of the Great Wall Green will depend on our capacity to mobilize the actors involved in the fight against desertification, namely local communities, women, youth, the regional communities, the devolved administrations, research centers, to cite only those. It's therefore essential to put a particular emphasis on the awareness of the local population. Similarly, the support of our development partners remains indispensable for the mobilization of the necessary financial resources for the implementation of projects that are identified in the strategy and the action plan developed for this purpose. The Republic of Djibouti was among the first countries to ratify the Convention on the Great Wall Green because we are convinced of its importance and necessity. It is in this spirit that my country has, moreover, developed a strategy and a plan of action in which have been identified the project to be implemented for the construction of the Great Wall Green. In accordance with this plan of action and in the national corridor of the Great world grid of reforestation measures and development have been conducted in the coastal zone at the plain of Halle, as well as we have already built the trees holes and micro dams in order to mobilize the surface waters, and this with the aim of increasing the access to water for rural population affected by climate change. Thanks to this water mobilized in the goal to increase the resilience of populations, the government has developed the perimeter. However, the absence of an international funding and the national budgetary constraint did not allow us to implement actions of variable size to overthrow the phenomenon of desertification. That's why we call here a call to the international community to support this great project in Africa.
The COP21 go into real important issue after the introductory speech yesterday of all the head of state. The delegation have rolled up the sleeve and began their negotiation. Let's listen with more detail. On the agenda were the climate warming issues. Africa has been organized today a mini summit with a dozen of heads of state chaired by the Egyptian leader Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Ban Ki-moon, the United Nations Secretary General, said in a quote, "Africa is particularly vulnerable to the effects of climate change. Much of its economy depends on agriculture based on water resources, including in rainwater, which are sensitive to climate. The interruption of the water supply and food poses serious risk to your savings, but also for your political stability." The year 2015 is the hottest ever recorded in sub-Saharan Africa. The faults of the climate warming, according to the experts, with the El Nino phenomenon, the chronic warming waters of the Pacific. In South Africa and in the neighboring countries, 27 million people are threatened by drought permanent. Let's come back now to the country's news. The President of the National Assembly, Mohamed Ali Hamed, has received today in a farewell visit the Russian ambassador in Djibouti. The President of the National Assembly was surrounded by his close collaborators, and the Russian ambassador, he was accompanied by his assistant. But the two parties discussed the cooperation relation between the two countries. They also emphasized on all that has been accomplished between the two nations during the presence of the ongoing ambassador in socio-economic area, particularly on trade and partnership in all sectors. The African Conference on Investment Promotion and the Rule of Law has been held today in the large conference hall of the Diplomatic Studies of Djibouti Institute. This conference is organized by the Konrad Adenauer Foundation for the Sub-Saharan Africa in partnership with the Regional Program for the Development of the Rule of Law and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the International Cooperation. The conference is chaired by the delegate Minister of International Cooperation of Djibouti, Mr. Ahmed Ali Silai, and Dr. Ismail Wa'ais, Economic Advisor of the President, the Director of the Institute of Diplomatic Study of Djibouti, the Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany, Wolfgang Picha, and the Director of the Program Development and Rule of Law in the Stellenbosch Law School. This promotion meeting aimed to define and promote regulatory measures in the area of investment and leading to sustainable development on the continent. Our country strives to develop its position as a regional economic center of the Horn of Africa and a regional hub. Let's recall that this conference on the investment promotion and the rule of law will continue until tomorrow. In his address for the occasion, the acting Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Ahmed Ali Silai, said that Djibouti launched from 10 years now in the vast chip world of modernization of this infrastructure and the promotion of liberal measures in order to create a framework for the regional and international investor. It aims also, he said, in accelerating the socio-economic development, its strategic position and its political stability to be a regional hub in various sectors such as telecommunication, the port sector, as well to encourage investment. He also stated that he put in place a government strategy, and thanks to these policies, several projects have been achieved, such as the establishment of an investment code, modern and of flexibility at the level of the labor code. Let's note that Djibouti offers beyond the stability the possibility of access to a genuine liberal market and in regional economic zone of more than 300,000 of inhabitants, then that the comments that the creation of a large free zone and a flourishing commercial sector banking thanks to the fixed parity of the national currency with the dollar. And finally, he called the large project of construction in the port sector, such as the multi-purpose port, the port of Tajura, the expansion of the port of Dorale, but also the construction of several airports and the new railway line. General Sheikh Zakaria Ibrahim has awarded also Colonel Wais Bokorre, commander of the Coast Guard. The ceremony has been held at the General Staff of the Army Forces under the Chief of Defense Staff, General Mohammed Tahir Ali, and many military officials. The Chief of Staff, Sheikh Zakaria Ibrahim, Staff of Djiboutian Army Forces, Colonel Wais, raised to the rank of Commander of the National Order of June 27. In his speech, the General Commander of the Djiboutian Army Forces said that he decorated with a great pleasure Colonel Wais Omar Bokorre, Coast Guard Commander, for his service to his country and his compatriot in strengthening of a bilateral relation and joint cooperation of the Republic of Djibouti with borderline and friendly countries, and its aim role in building Djiboutian custody in a short time to combat terrorism in maritime piracy, illegal passage, and safeguard the territorial water. It has not failed to filtrate officials of the Guard Djibouti in their duty and their cooperation with the Djiboutian Army Forces.
وفي تأسيس وتقوية العلاقات الثانية والتعاون المشترك بين جمهورية جيبوتي والدول الشقيقة والصديقة، ولدورها العديد في بناء قوات خفر سواحل في فترة وجيزة، وتلعب دورا كبيرا في محاربة الإرهاب والقرصنة والهجرة غير الشرعية، وتشارك بقوة في حفظ الأمن المياه الوطن الإقليمي وكل الحدود الساحلة. وفي إطار توجيهات قيادة عام للقوات المسلحة مواصلة خدمة هذا الوطن وليكون دافعا.
And at the same time, the General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, Chief of Staff of the Army Forces, also completed the decoration of the Defense Minister of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia Embassy to Djibouti, the Commander Iba Issam Mohammed Al-Amari. The ceremony was held along with the Director of National Security, Hassan Saeed Khairé, the General Mohammed Ali Tahir, and the Defense Staff Chief, and the responsible of affairs at the Embassy of Saudi Arabia Kingdom in Djibouti. Issam Commander has been awarded as the June 27 Order 9. In an intervention, the General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim did not fail to congratulate the Defense Minister of Saudi Arabia Kingdom. It was on the headline, and the first contingent of the Hill Battalion 1 from Baladwin have arrived yesterday morning at the International Airport of Humbly. This first contingent, composed of 79 persons, have been unloaded by the Minister of National Defense, Mr. Hassan Darar Hufani, the General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, Head of the General Staff of the Army Forces, the Director of National Security, Mr. Hassan Saeed Khairé, the Deputy Chief of the Defense Staff, General General Tahir Muhammad Ali in the Djiboutian Army group of folklore group Harbi group also hosted the Heroes of Hill with a patriotic song. The first contingent arrived aboard of 2 United Nations aircraft. A second contingent of 120 20 men and women of the Hill Battalion have also arrived in Djibouti at 6 p.m. in the same days. And for this occasion, the Minister of Defense Hassan Darar Oufani, the military have all been routed to Arta, especially in the center of Damajog, hosted by the prefect of the region of Arta, Abdullah Darar Uki, the president of the regional Council, Omar Jama Odowa, along with the General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, Chief of Staff of the Army Forces. The female staff of the Army have hosted the arrival with a great enthusiasm and flowers. After a brief speech of encouragement, the General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim has reached a warm welcome to the military for the installation in Arta. The Directorate of the Maritime Affairs issued a statement in which they inform user of Mohammed Qasim Burhan Ferry that due to festivity which will be held tomorrow morning, the departure of the ferry of Tuabok was postponed to 11 a.m. The Maritime Affairs apologized its user for this inconvenience and urged them to report to the stopover at 10 a.m. And to interrupt the national news, a workshop on strengthening the capacity of public institutions of the Republic of Djibouti on the international instruction with respect to the promotion and protection of human rights continue its work at the Acacias Hotel. This workshop is jointly organized by the Ministry of Justice, the Regional Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights in Addis Ababa, and the Office of the Regional Coordinator of the United Nations System in Djibouti. This workshop has seen the participation of the President of the Human Rights Commission in Djibouti, Ali Mohamed Abdou, the Regional Representative of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Idris Omar Akane, the representative of the UNFD, as well as the representative of different institutions. The objective of this workshop is to strengthen the knowledge of public institutions, Djiboutian women on international mechanism, United Nations and regional Africa in the promotion and protection of human rights. This institution, with the techniques for the preparation and submission of the alternative report to the treaty bodies, to the Universal Periodic Review, as well as to the African Commission on Human Rights and People's Rights and the African Committee on the Rights of the Child. During this workshop, the chairman of the National Commission of the Human Rights in Djibouti, Ali Mohamed Abdou, has indicated that the Republic of Djibouti has made a great step in the promotion of human rights. And now on the international level, in the COP21, the indigenous people demand a legal statute to protect land. Let's listen with more detail.
Away from the media coverage of the climate conference, the voice of the people on the front line of the effects of global warming are fighting to be heard. People like Patricia Gualinga, who lives in Ecuador's Amazonian rainforest. We are working to make sure that indigenous peoples are recognized as major players in the fight to mitigate the effects of global warming. We are defending our forests and challenging oil extraction and mining so we can protect the Amazon's tropical forests. In this context, small villages of 1,200 people in the Amazon area of Ecuador have come here to the COP21 in Paris, trying to create a global conscience about how to find a solution for a problem as big as global warming, said Patricia Galinga, who is Quechua International Relations Leader in Sarayaku, Ecuadorian Amazonia. Ecuador's rainforests have been declared a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve when the country's government granted a concession to an oil company to dig up the area's natural resources. Patricia and other activists took a stand and now want to be awarded the legal right to be the chief protectors of their lands. In 2012, the Inter-American Court of Human Rights ruled that Patricia and the people of Sarayaku in Ecuador must be consulted and give their consent prior to project on their territories. However, Ecuador's government has done little to address the court's ruling.
China and Brazil have common interests in climate talks. On the sidelines of the COP21, President Xi Jinping has also met his Brazilian counterpart Dilma Rousseff. The two leaders discussed a number of issues, including prospects and challenges in tackling climate change. Report.
China is willing to strengthen political and strategic mutual trust and mobilize cooperation across all fields with Brazil, said China's President Xi Jinping after meeting with his Brazilian counterpart Dilma Rousseff in Paris on Monday. Both heads are attending the 21st conference of the party to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. China attached great importance to its relationship with Brazil as the two states are key cooperative and developing partners, Xi Jinping said. Both sides need to make effort to enlarge the investment and cooperation in energy and resources, agriculture, infrastructure, construction and manufacturing industries, so as to promote the stable growth of bilateral trade and increase financial cooperation, Xi Jinping noted, mentioning that both countries should make good use of the BRICS Development Bank. Talking about the issues of the climate change, Xi Jinping noted that China and Brazil, both as important developing nations and members of BASIC, share a wide range of common interests. Both countries need to closely coordinate to help make the conference a full-scale, balanced, powerful, and binding one. Dilma Rousseff said she agreed with Xi Jinping's views and is willing to see some key cooperation projects in transportation and port trade achieve position progress. Dilma Rousseff added that both countries can cooperate further in the field of agriculture and logistics.
So that's it for tonight's news. Thank you for your attention and do stay with us.